1. Wake up, brother, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2. Get some good, some food in you. Step 3. Think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 So life ain't easy, yo, I think there's a reason though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. I always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flies, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Wake up, brother, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2. Get some good, some food in you. Step 3. Think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Hi, Bullhorn Betty. Thank you for my shirt. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Kids Club.
Hey guys, Bullhorn Betty here. So there's something going on in my community and I need your help with. So this is a double homicide that happened in my community, but there's a lot more to this case than meets the eye. This is Thomas Matajek. He actually killed his mother and her boyfriend recently, but the problem here is he shouldn't even have been out of jail. He should have been in a mental hospital, and he is deemed incompetent to stand trial. This right here is our state attorney, and his name is Ed Brodsky. He has been our state attorney in the 12th district for some time. I recently learned our law enforcement officer, Sheriff Rick Wells, has arrested this guy many times and has prepared a case and sent that over to the state prosecutor. Ed Brodsky was supposed to litigate the matter. However, he ended up taking the felony case, reducing it to a misdemeanor, sending it to a misdemeanor court, and then just a month ago sent this deranged mental patient to a halfway house where he escaped and killed his mother. How can you help Bullhorn Betty? You can help Bullhorn Betty by saying, we will not accept this. This is unacceptable. Our law enforcement does their job and they send it over to the prosecutors just to let them go. Now, 2 people in my own backyard have lost their life because of these horrible and poor decisions at the hand of the state prosecutor, not law enforcement. So please, I ask you, is this going to be acceptable in your community as well? This is how you can help. If this case bothers you, if it disgusts you, if you realize 2 people should not be laying in the morgue right now, please consider giving Ed Brodsky a call and letting him know this is unacceptable from any state prosecutor.
Help the Americans first! We need real help here in America!
We want to save America, and we surely believe that Donald Trump is the way to save America.
We need Donald J. Trump in office! For 2024, baby!
It's all about documenting the experience of being a front row Joe.
Bringing prosperity back to America, Mr. Trump.
It's about getting America and American people back to work.
We need Trump back into office. Why? Because corruption has infiltrated Washington, D.C. President Biden is leaving us blind so we are dependent. We need to bring money back to the Americans' pockets.
It's about making sure mom and dad can have one job and spend time with their children instead of allowing our education department to raise our children.
If you guys don't know, Donald Trump will be here tomorrow at 2 p.m. We need lower taxes, lower gas. We need to close our border. Shut off the fentanyl coming into our country and kill children. We're not opposed to helping others. We're just saying America first. We're into all Americans. We want all Americans to be prosperous, and right now we've got a corrupt country.
If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be here. I can promise you that.
Well, hello, my beautiful people of YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter, or X. I'm Bullhorn Betty, and today we're going to be discussing the Idaho 4 and Bryan Kohberger. This is related to the Moscow University murders out of the University of Idaho. This is where Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle lost their life in the early morning hours of November 13th. Since this case broke, this case has rocked the world. People wanted to know who could possibly be responsible for the brutal slaying of 4 University of Idaho students. Since then, on December 30th, Bryan Kohberger was arrested and charged with the crime. One of the first things that came out was the affidavit of probable cause, and that was released to the public. And many people in the public read it online for the first time and had that immediate shock value, like I did on my channel, the Bullhorn Betty channel on YouTube. And when we learned that Dylan Mortensen waited 8 hours to call law enforcement, it confused a lot of people. It made a lot of people angry or upset and concerned whether that delay cost one of the victims their lives. Now, granted, fast forwarding to now, we know that that was not the case, that no matter what, all 4 of them would have most likely succumbed to their injuries no matter what time the 911 call was made. However, there was a lot of confusion with that 911 call, predominantly when and why, because it came in right before noon on November 13th. However, it was reports for an unconscious person, and many people understand stabbing type of injuries and had to imagine the brutality and the blood that would have accompanied that kind of attack. So it left a lot of people very confused about the 911 call of the unconscious person. So we knew that there were people at the house before law enforcement arrived because Lieutenant Lanier stated so, and also cleared every person that was at that home very quickly in the case because there was so much focus on the students in and around the 4 victims' lives. Since then, many want to know, what did we miss? Did we miss anything? And I think with everything going on the way it did and everything moving at a fast pace, we did miss something. I pray that everybody here on today's show is here to learn something new or maybe remember something that they forgot about. God bless each and every one of you. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories channel. From the East Coast to the West Coast, we are everywhere true crime is. We are asking for the public's help. We are searching in the woods. We are doing what it takes here on the Bullhorn Betty channels to find answers to the most alarming cases we have been watching on the news.
I can tell you personally that I have traveled this entire country seeking these answers and bringing that content right here to you here on the Bullhorn Betty channels and Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories. We are happy with the work that we've done. We've brought many answers to the public, and we have defied mainstream media in our pursuit of the truth in these cases. We will continue to work, we will continue to fight for these victims, and we will continue to tell their stories here on my channels. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty brand of channels and the Coffee Club. Thank you for your love, thank you for your support, and more importantly, thank you for allowing me to bring these victims' stories to each and every one of you, advocating for each of these victims. God bless you, God bless America, and more importantly, God bless our victims.
What is up, my beautiful people of YouTube and X? We are sliding into our weekend. It is just Thursday. I know. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful week so far. We started off with Manic Monday. This week has been kind of dragging on a little bit. I got to be honest with you. But what's going on with Bryan Kohberger? What's going on with that? We were pushed out. Nobody wanted the public in. We were just pesky old public people that just like to spread around misinformation and point the finger at bad guys and say you did it. And we're just mean. Right? So we went from being pushed out to now the defense saying, wait a minute, I think we pushed the public too far out. Nobody's sympathizing with us. We got no more simps. So now they want us back in. Nancy Taylor's working overtime. Poor me, right? Poor her client. But now they want us back in, and now we were watching this hearing that they insisted on it being public. They wanted public opinion on this, right? Nancy Taylor's going to the mattress to make sure the public can be in. We're entitled, she says. The public's entitled to this information. Well, no shit. That's what we've been saying for the last year, lady. Lordy. So we're watching this hearing. This hearing was all over the place. She doesn't know what the hell she wants. It's just a delay tactic. Delay, right? She just wants to delay. Oh my gosh, we need the IGG. We know we're not going to be able to use it in court, but we want to see it anyways. We need to know the timing. Well, the summary. Well, we should see everything, but the summary has everything that you want, and that's what we're giving you because that's what you want, lady. And apparently NC Taylor doesn't get it. So then it went from the IGG, blah, 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 to we need a new venue, right? Bryan Kohberger's not going to get a fair trial in this very small town that's been infiltrated with us stupid media people, putting our fingers on the scales of justice, don't you know? I don't know how the world survived with media before media. Oh, that's right, because media has been around. I forgot, it's ingrained in our Constitution. Holy crap. Public has a right to know. Holy crap. Didn't know that. Learning something new every day. It's nice to see everybody. TD Dean is the first one to say hi to Bullhorn Betty and family, followed by our beautiful Sonia. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We have Thunder 420 up in the house. Don, 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 don. Teresa, it's nice to see you. Courtney, our beautiful Southern Grammy Wolf. Our little battle axe. She got in a fight with the car and she kind of won, right? She kind of won. She's up and walking around now. Hobbling around. I should stop. She's going to smack me. She's going to smack me through the computer. Maddie Dawn, it's nice to see you. Good morning, Honey Dip. Good morning, Kay Young. It's nice to see you. Mama Llama's up in our house. Our beautiful Turtle Madness. It's nice to see you. Allie, good morning. Net L, it's nice to see you. Our beautiful Unicorn One, Indiana, which I need to call back. I'm horrible about returning phone calls, but I know I need to call you back, so I'll call you back. Kathy B, it's nice to see you. Our beautiful Ricky Beavers is up in the house. My friend. I've been seeing you all over. You're pulling a Bullhorn Betty. I go on TikTok. I see my beautiful friend Ricky Beavers there. I go over here. I see my beautiful friend Ricky Beavers over there. He's just getting around downtown. You guys need to go over and check him out. RickyBeavers.com. RickyBeavers.com. Our beautiful friend that loves the work we do, that always loves to help, right? He wants the kid farm for under or disadvantaged or unwanted children. He's just a beautiful person inside and out, and love his drive, and more importantly, love his voice, right? He's got a great voice. He did veteran here on this show about a year ago live. Just a beautiful person. It's nice to see you, my friend. Susiana from Louisiana is down with the Bullhorn Betty show. Oh, shit show. Oh, show. That's right, show. Second Thesis, it's nice to see you. Good morning. Cool gamer. Many of you, I realize Diesel Roddy Puppy, it's nice to see you. Good morning, my love. Barbara, it's nice to see you as well. Tracy, good morning. Who else do we have up in the house? K.I., it's nice to see you. Jeff H., Tutti Frutti, good morning, my love. Good morning. Our beautiful Pebbles is up in the house. The Golden Lady, it's nice to see you, my love. Good morning. Who else do we have? Who am I missing? Love, Not War. MJ, good morning. Mary, good morning. It's nice to see you. We got Rebel up in the house. It's nice to see you, my love. Long time. I think I got just Nani. It's nice to see you as well. Good morning. I think I got just about everybody. I'm going through now just to make sure I didn't miss anybody. If I happen to miss your name, good morning. A big overall shout out to anybody that's in there, watching from the bushes, that are working at their computer and can't type into the chat. Good morning to you too. We know you're out there. We love you. Keep up the great work. Don't ever let anybody get you down. So getting back to Bryan Kohberger, we're going to watch this hearing. We're not going to take the whole time to watch the hearing. It's drawn out for like an hour and 20 minutes, but we're going to pop through it here, pop through it there. We're going to listen, open our ears, shut our mouths. We're going to listen, take it all in. We're going to have a discussion. It's me, Jen. It's nice to see you, my love. Ashley's World. Good morning. And then we're going to get on with our day. We're going to hit it and quit it today. And just to let you know, why is all the political stuff in the front? I'll tell you. Bullhorn Betty is going to a political event. I'm going to a Trump rally. You're damn right. All right? People say that I try to lie, but I don't lie about where I'm going. I just don't like people all up in my shit. That's why I don't tell everybody all of my business. However, I'm getting to the point where I really don't give a shit. Bring it on, bitch. Right? So I'm going to be at a Trump rally. I'm going to be representing the Front Row Joes with my beautiful friends from the Front Row Joes, right? And I'm going to go after that. I'm going to make my way to Georgia. And I am going to cover the case of this woman that was brutalized on campus by an illegal alien. Okay? And I'm going to be on the diatribe of we need to close the freaking border. And if anybody here has a problem with that, there is a turn off button and unsubscribe button, and you can kiss my ass button. Okay? So this is my channel. we're going to remember that this is the Bullhorn Betty channel. And if you don't support it, you don't have to support everything we do. But you're not going to tell me what I can and cannot do. Not on my own channels that I worked my ass off to build. So with that being said, we're gonna be who we are. We're gonna be authentic, and people are just gonna either love us or hate us. But you know what? It's probably not gonna be any different than what we've been dealing with lately, right? So there you have it. Bullhorn Betty still gonna keep being Bullhorn Betty. Nobody is ever going to take that away from me. And we are going to be representing what we believe. And I'm sorry, I'm watching our country being destroyed. And I'm not the kind of person that sits on a channel and just bitches about something, right? I'm one of those people, when I see a problem, my ass gets up out of my seat and goes and fights and finds resolution to that problem. That's the difference between people like me and everybody else. I am not a YouTuber. I'm not a TikToker. I'm a content creator, and I go out there and create. Okay, I'm a political activist and advocate. That means I go out there when push comes to shove. We need policies. Who's going to be driving those policy arguments? I guarantee it's going to be me and people like me out there doing that. We see problems with our children and our society. Who goes out there and fights for that? People like me. If anybody has a problem with people like me, please don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Have a great day. God bless you. But you can kiss my ass just like everybody else, okay? Let's just get that straight right now. Thank you, big boy. I know how to get big boy's attention. It's nice to see you, big boy, up in the house. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you. Pretty soon I'm going to be coming up here. I gotta get Big Boy's pocket, right? We're a gold digger, not a gold digger, right? Did you guys see that? You guys got to go to my Instagram. Just when you think I can't be smart ass enough, I just take that screw and just get in there and just grind it just a little bit more. So if you guys are out in the Greensboro, North Carolina area and you love Trump or you just want to see what goes on, why is Betty such a cult follower, right? You just want to see what makes me such a cultist, elitist, or whatever the hell they call us, right? Cult member. If you want to see me in my natural habitat, bring your binoculars, but not your shotguns, okay? Bring your binoculars, not your shotguns. And if you guys happen to be there, come up and say hi to me, okay? Don't be hiding in the back and say, oh, it's Bullhorn Betty. Should we say hi? Should we say hi? Yes! Yes! Say hi! Don't be scared. I don't bite. All right, enough of that. So getting back to Bryan Kohberger, we all know this whole situation with Bryan Kohberger. Bryan Kohberger is, he never had an alibi. He's never spoken alibi. He, in all fairness, hasn't lied to the courts either, because when they asked him, is he guilty or innocent, he stood in silent, right? He stood in silent. He didn't say he was guilty or not guilty. He just shut his mouth. You know what? That's what defense attorneys want from their clients, right? We have far too many people out there in the criminal justice system that don't know the keep your mouth shut thing. Well, Bryan Kohberger's got that down pat. He didn't even breathe. Are you guilty or not guilty? All right, we'll enter not guilty. Right? Then the other concession was many people had Bryan Kohberger's back saying, oh, he has a drug problem. He's got a drug problem. He loaned his car out. It wasn't him. Wasn't him. Well, the biggest concession that the defense, in my opinion, made, and nobody, like I would have been, and I did. I was like, woo, 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 woo. Did you guys not hear this? Nobody else was picking up on it. One of the biggest concessions the defense could have made was putting Bryan Kohberger inside that car on that night. And they did just that. They can't undo that. So now they have Bryan Kohberger's car. He's driving around alone at night. He has no alibi. He was eager to come back to Moscow, Idaho to to exonerate himself, and now we're riddled with delay tactics from his defense. So are you excited and eager to exonerate yourself? Because this doesn't look like a man eager to exonerate himself, in my opinion, and from where I stand. It looks like a man that's terrified that he committed a crime, and now he knows he's up shit's creek without a paddle and needs to delay, and so does his attorney. So every opportunity she has a chance to bring everybody back to court and further delay the proceedings, she's going to do that, because every time she files a motion, it stops the clock. When a motion goes, that's why you always want to have an open motion on the docket, because you can't move to trial if you have open motions on the docket, right? So what do? They start riddling the docket with these open motions to compel, all this other garbage that they put on the court record. So it has the appearance that it's not ready for trial. It's a known strategy. It's a trial strategy. It's a legal strategy. It's one that's well known. Okay. And that's what I see going on here. So in my opinion, she knows she's got a guilty client. She knows she cannot defend this client. And so she has to find a way to defend him. The only way that I can see that she can defend him right now is by procedure. They don't have a legal argument. So she's got to try to attack this case procedurally. They're not doing this right. They're not doing that right. How did they derive this? How did they get from point A to point B? Hell, we even went from point A to point B and didn't even realize it. Remember when we were standing outside of Wazoo? Could it be possible? Yeah, it could be possible, right? Let me see if I can find that clip before we go into this one. Hold on a second. I might be able to find it. I might not. I can't remember which account I have it on. Oopsie. Let's go over to Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories, the up-and-coming channel of all the cool kids. If you are a cool kid, you're going to want to be on the Bullhorn Betty Crime Stories, okay? If you're not, we do try to reward everybody, because everybody deserves a trophy, don't you know? Why are my butts okay, so let me go back here. And what were we looking for? We were looking for... let's just do Bryan Kohberger. See what comes up. See if I can find what I'm looking for. Can I find what I'm looking for? Probably not. Okay. This the one? Yep. This is it. Might as well show it. Roll that beautiful bean footage of Bullhorn.
This community has been rocked to its core.
Do not let their lives be defined by how they died, but instead remember them for the joy they spread and the fun times they shared while they lived.
While we were at the memorial last night for the foreign slain victims, again, this happened on November 13th, 2022, where 4 University of Idaho students were slain in their home just off campus while they slept.
We don't know how long this investigation will take, and we don't know the why behind this horrific act.
We were getting reports that this was a targeted attack and very personal. This is one of the spots that law enforcement was telling was a key place of interest for people to be looking out and finding out whether or not people had videography, photos, any kind of incidences, evidence of any sort at this location. It has now made more people feel unsafe and fear this community, because a person still hasn't been brought to justice for this gruesome attack on these beautiful souls that attended the University of Idaho. I'm here at the Moscow Police Department. We are looking for other information here, primarily some of the activities that went on in that house. We're also checking for the Sigma Chi fraternity house. We want to know what was going on over there. This is the Sigma Chi, the back of the Sigma Chi fraternity house. It is the largest fraternity house on that road. Right? And you're right there. I'm outside of Washington State university right now. Why in the world would I be out at Washington State University? It's because this is another college, another university that is in close proximity to the University of Idaho. One of the things that screamed out to me is a lot of people are believing that this person is a college-age student. This is just one of those things where we're just saying, is it possible? Yeah, it is possible.
Boom, bitches! All right, people say we don't know what we're doing. Let me tell you, the Bullhorn Betty channel was the first media outlet in front of Wazoo before Bryan Kohberger was ever named. The very first. We were sitting at Zoe's. I looked across to Olivia's shoulder. I saw Wazoo and I looked at her and I grabbed my stuff and I went running. She's like, what in the world's going on? And I'm like, another university is in a few-minute drive. Everybody thinks this is a university-age student. Who's saying that it's not coming from this university? And so I went out there and started immediately recording. Come to find out, that was recorded on December 1st. Do you know the day that Bryan Kohberger's name was on November 29th when he was first realized by law enforcement? We didn't know that until the probable cause affidavit came out. The Bullhorn Betty channel was the first channel that brought Wazoo up in the conversation when we were out there in November of 2022, shortly after the death of these 4 university college students. So that ended up being a theory that ended up panning out, because we're constantly theorizing what the answers could be when it comes to these types of cases. When we put our boots on the ground, people like to try to say that we have vacations and all this other stuff. I can tell you that is the furthest thing from the truth. It is work. It is gruesome, hard, sweat-ridden work, even in the freezing cold. We are running nonstop. Do you know why this week's lives have been late? Because the trip to Texas, the 1 hour difference, time difference, completely wiped me out. It is hard to get myself back on my schedule after these trips. These trips wear me out. I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't go to bed until 11 to 12 o'clock at night. I get 4 to 5 hours of sleep when I'm on the road, if I'm lucky. And it is a lot of hard, labor-ridden work, going from one place to another, trying to follow the steps, trying to find the answers. We are not just out there for content. We're out there seeking answers. And here we have this guy from a different university, and nobody still to this day, a year later, even knows why. Why did this guy do this to these students? What did they ever do to him? Because there is no connection as to any wrongdoing. Any wrongdoing from these individuals he slaughtered inside that home. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of where we are as of yesterday. Yesterday was a hearing. I gotta say, when I heard this hearing, I'm like, huh? Like, why are we here? Why did we just waste the public's time with this nonsense? Out of all the freaking hearings you guys block us out of, this was a snooze fest. This was a bitch session for the defense, in my opinion. Let's get to it. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
The proceedings, I think they are live streaming through the court's YouTube channel. So
yeah, and they take it off. Keep the live streams up.
Of any unauthorized dissemination is to know exactly who was privy to what was enclosed. So at a bare minimum, we need to know who it's going to be given over to.
This is related. Their arguments are now related to the IGG. Let me just go back, if I can go back just a little bit. There we go. Looks like she was sitting down at this point. So we'll go back just a little bit so you guys can hear the beginning conversations of it. But this is related to the IGG. And then, of course, after complaining about the IGG and how irrelevant it's going to be at trial, by the way, then we move over to the venue conversations.
Named. So I don't think that's a problem. But let me go to, but Ms. Jennings? Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
That's correct, Your Honor. And Your Honor is familiar and aware of the materials that we're discussing. And you're also aware of the sensitive nature of those materials. The state is really just following the court's lead in your protective order, where you named specifically who on the defense team would be allowed to have access. It follows that if we're going to expand that access, that those individuals need to be specifically named. And it's really going to be the only way the court can have control of any unauthorized dissemination.
So what they're talking about here is the defense is trying to get the IGG information and wants her defense team to be able to review it and digest it and find ways to find loopholes in this stuff. And that's basically what she's trying to do. She needs this handed over to the people that have the knowledge about these facts. A defense attorney doesn't have all the knowledge about every single fact that may rise in a case, and that's why they need these expert witnesses. The expert witnesses are what break these things down. And so the state is arguing there's a non-dissemination order, and people have to be specifically specified in that order in order to have access to these documents. We can't just willy-nilly hand them over to the defense for them to hand them over to whomever they want to hand them over to, because it will create an issue with potential leaks. We saw that in the Allen case, the Delphi case, right? There was an attorney, one of his attorney's friends went into his office and leaked a bunch of photos out to the public that should not have been there. Creating this type of situation where this is a high profile case and there is the ability of people leaking information out. And that is what the courts are trying to contain with these non-dissemination orders, because if they can contain the information from being released or have an order in place, if somebody violates the orders, the courts have more ability to prosecute and deal with those problems. In this case, they want them specified. If anybody's going to be touching these documents related to the investigative genetic genealogy testing and the many potential matches, they want to know who it is, because the state's been trying to get a protective order to protect the results of that investigative genetic genealogy testing. So we've got a lot of problems with this, but this is what just irritates me. Everybody's talking about clicks and views and clickbait and all this other stuff. Let me just clarify this for my audience, because I like my audience to be well abreast of everything. People in the news are saying that this is a major legal argument, that this is going to set precedent and yada, yada, yada. Let me just break it down to you folks. This is not the first time investigative genetic genealogy testing has been used in a case against a suspect, okay? This is not groundbreaking information. This is not setting precedent. Precedent has already been set. We've already got a U.S. Justice Department directive. Everything's being followed to a T, in my opinion, from where I sit. Now, is there potential for abuse or mistakes? Yeah, I can say, yeah, probably. But the bottom line here with this investigative genetic genealogy testing is it's not going to be used at trial. So if it's irrelevant at trial, it's kind of hard to force a court to turn all this stuff over to you, citing it's exculpatory. If it's exculpatory, it could be used at trial. Both sides are saying it's irrelevant for trial purposes. So why are we here arguing about something that's irrelevant and moot? Guess that's the argument now, isn't it?
Is to know exactly who was privy to what was enclosed. So at a bare minimum, we need to know who it's going to be given over to. Your December 29th sealed order also said that any further dissemination of the materials or the information contained within the materials, including to any investigator or experts, must be approved by the court after a showing by the defense as to why such individual needs the information. I
just realized I was muted. That's why we've been hearing a change of heart by the defense, because the defense wanted us out too. And now they're realizing they kind of shot themselves in the foot, because now they're going to have to argue with the state to now make it public. You hear the state got what they wanted. They were able to close this case down. And now there's like, hey, wait a minute. The courts did order that only people that are on this approved list may see this. So if they want to show this off, they've got to be on the approved list. See how that works? Double-edged sword. Always be cognizant of what you're truly giving up when you agree and stipulate to some of these orders, because now Nancy Taylor needs this open to the public. And now she has to fight with her own orders that she helped create in this very case.
The defense's motion, their stated reasoning is, quote, to investigate how and when Mr. Kohberger was identified as a suspect, end quote. State maintains they don't need access to all of that highly sensitive information. To satisfy that purpose, that is laid out in the November 28, 2023 letter from the FBI to the state. So we would ask that, one, they be named. If they are granted access, that it be to that letter, and that the balance of the materials be protected. And we would ask that you follow the proposed language in the state's response from February 9th to ensure further protections of the materials.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Ms. Taylor?
Well, Your Honor, I know what letter Ms. Jennings refers to. And I think our experts should have access to the actual materials. That letter is a summary. It's a police summary. Our duty is to investigate police work. We do that in every case. And with our heightened duties in a death penalty case, our investigators should have access to the entire record. Our investigators understand what a protective order is, and they'll abide by that protective order. Again, if you want them named in any order allowing them access, that's fine. That's just fine with me. It's most important that they have access to all of the materials. The summary contained in the FBI's letter isn't the totality of the materials. It doesn't show some of the particulars about things that were happening on certain dates. And that's what's important to put into a timeline so that we can try to understand how the state did its work in this case.
Well,
She's wanting to know how the state did the work in this case. How did her client become? Well, your client came to be named because his car was parked in the Wazoo campus parking lot and out front of his apartment. And they just so happened to be looking for that very car. That's how they first came along to your client's name. Now, how did they link him to the crime? Well, there was a speck of DNA on a button snap on a knife sheath that should not have been left at the crime scene, but was. I keep wondering, what happened? What would have happened if that knife sheath, if the girls didn't fight him and that knife sheath didn't fall out? Because I believe now, I always thought he put it there, but he went in because he went back the next morning, and it's like I almost thought he wanted to see his work, but now I think a little different. I think now that we know that how aggressively the girls fought, I think he lost it while doing the deed unintentionally.
one of the issues with this IGP is relevance at all. And so
relevance at all, that they're wanting stuff that, to pick apart that they can't even bring to trial. Therefore, it's not exculpatory. Therefore, they're not really entitled to the entire thing. I think it's the appetite of the court and the appetite of the law on the books.
Viewing it is it needs to go on steps, maybe where it's justified with the relevance or the potential of relevance for some of that information, because from the very beginning, the state's position has been it has no bearing on the case. It will not have any bearing on trial.
So again, he's reiterating, wait a minute, this is not even going to be able to be used at trial. He's basically in a roundabout way saying you're beating a dead horse here because you can't even use it. Why are we spending time on it?
But I allowed access to what I thought was potentially relevant, and to allow your experts, now allowing your experts to view that information. So let me just kind of move into the other clarification, because I also understand, particularly relevance of mitigation. Okay, what your investigators need to cover. They likely have to have contact with Mr. Kohberger's family, and that we're not. I don't think we're talking about that kind of investigation. I mean, that is your responsibility. It's also your responsibility to dig in wherever you have to. I mean, I think you're required to do that. So my balancing responsibility is to keep it in control to some degree.
So you have to limit the scope, is what he's saying. You know, they're trying to get too far out of the arguments for the information, that he's saying that they basically need to step their way into more aggressive orders because they're not showing enough good cause to have this information, is my understanding what he's basically saying in a more legalese terms.
So I guess what I'm asking is that I have some justification for making contact with certain families that may have no bearing whatsoever on the case, unless it's in mitigation or something like that. Now, the DNA issues, especially in the IgG, it has to have some relevance if there's some context, okay, that
No
connects
fishing expedition
to the case itself. That's how I'm looking at it. I might be wrong, but so you can respond. Okay.
All right, we're talking about a couple of different things here. With our request for clarification, I was talking specifically about people that are already known to our team that we may be in contact with. Bryan's direct family, parents, sisters, aunts and uncles.
And those I interrupt you just for 1 second. That has no relevance to the IgG information that you were given.
Those are people we already knew before.
Okay.
So I want clarification that I can continue to talk to the Kohberger family.
Yes.
I want to make sure.
Much different than the IgG argument, right? I want to make sure I can talk to, like, this is so, in my opinion, so wildly almost oxymoron. It's ridiculous. It just shows the delay tactics that the defense is using, because they keep moving the goalpost, right? They don't have a cohesive message here. It's just delay. And it's kind of coming out in her arguments, because it's like, well, we just want clarification that we can still speak to the Kohberger family. I'm sorry. When has that ever been off the table? I mean, there's not one order that I have read that has prevented her from speaking to the Kohberger family. Moreover, I believe she has been speaking to the Kohberger family this entire time. So again, it's like one of those things where we're like, what? Why are we here? Let's keep going.
Make sure I'm not running afoul of court order. I want to be
appropriate.
I want to be really clear who I'm asking for to have access to the IgGs. It's not our mitigation investigator. That our mitigation investigator, I think the court heard me talk about going 3 generations back to do her work. That's required under the ADA. I'm not talking about her. She would.
Misspellings is a requirement here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. Maybe I should go. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this one.
Hey, baby, how you doing?
Hopefully I got the deep voice down. Pat for Just Deb. I saw that. I knew she mistyped it. I wanted to make sure I pointed it out to everybody so I could embarrass her this Thursday morning. God bless you.
Wouldn't have access to this. I'm talking about our criminal investigators dealing with the innocent space for Bryan. those are the people that I think should have access to the same materials under the same protective order. They're not doing the generations back. None of the IGG materials would be used for that part of the mitigation work. She's doing.
So what, again, the judge is saying we need to have conversations about relevance. So we still, even all this time into 12 minutes into this hearing, we still don't understand the relevance.
Doing her own thing, her mitigation investigator, looking backwards as she's supposed to at the things she needs to. That's not the IGG materials. So putting aside that investigator and thinking of only our criminal investigators that are going to be dealing with our innocence phase of the case. Those are the investigators that I'd like to have access. They're the investigators that participate in the meeting.
The innocence phase of the case. I didn't know if you guys caught that. What she said is the innocence phase, the plan B of the case.
Meeting with our experts. They're the investigators that help us put the timeline together to understand different things that were happening in the case.
You know, you can just ask your client what he was doing at the time of these murders. And I mean, that could probably save us a lot of problems here because we can just move on to the sentencing phase of the case.
Before Bryan's name was ever spoken by anybody. And we're missing that big piece about why was Bryan's name spoken. And
here, Ann, I'm sorry. I don't know where you've been, but here, Bullhorn Betty will break it down for you. So according to the probable cause affidavit, what page was it on? Was it on page 4 or 5? This is going off the top of my head, so do your own research. We have the exact police up in the house in the bushes, so we want to make sure everybody knows you are to do your own research. This is to be taken factually, but it can't be confirmed as factually true or correct, and only the research that you yourself do can be confirmed by you as factually correct. So, according to the probable cause affidavit, they said they were looking for a white Elantra. Maybe she forgot about that. And so while they were searching for this white Elantra, one of these officers, these WASU, that's the Washington State Police or Washington State University police officers. Those are the guys that run around to those cars, you know, and they have these suits on. Well, he happened to be driving around the parking lots around Wazoo and came across a car that resembled one that they were looking for. So he got on his walkie-talkie and said, "Hey, boss, yeah, what's going on?" "Well, I kind of found this car here." Oh, where, really? What car? What car are you talking about?" "You know, that white Elantra that they're looking for. I think I might have found it." Oh, where'd you find it at?" "Oh, it's over here at the Steptoe Apartments." Oh. "Do you know who it belongs to?" This guy by the name of Bryan Hamburger, something. Maybe it's something like Bryan Kohberger, sir. It might be Bryan Kohberger. I looked at it. He looks like he has an apartment at 201. "Okay, sir. Thank you for your service. Have a great night." "Okay, sir. 10-4, Roger Dodger." Right? So since Ann C. Taylor can't remember that, I thought I would reenact it for her just to kind of jog her memory a little bit about how Bryan Kohberger's name got involved in this conversation to begin with. Okay. Ada, entirely too long. Okay. Entirely too long.
How does that connect to the other pieces that we have? That's what our criminal investigators are going to do. They're not looking at IGG materials, if allowed, to do any of the mitigation work. That's separate and apart. So I want to make sure that that's really clear. Also, when we're talking about whether something is relevant or not, I think that we're thinking of the standard for information to come out in court. That's not what I'm talking about. The court found that the IGG information was material under the discovery rules to the defense and allowed us to have access to some.
To some, babe. To some. You got the summary. The summary has all the information you've been requesting. I don't get it. Why is she having a problem with this? Oh, that's right. She needs to delay. Her client's guilty. Forgot about that.
It's for that same purpose and under that same rule that we're asking the court to allow our investigators to have access to the same materials. Whether or not any of this is something that comes into the court,
You have to have justification, and come on, this is not our first rodeo. I'm just a 2-year student here, right? I'm a paralegal student. I know legal 101, right? Legal litigation, criminal litigation 101. You can't go on fishing expeditions, babe. You got to have relevance. You got to show good cause for the information. You can't stand before the judge and say, "Hey, we can't use it in court, but we want it anyways. We want to go on this fishing expedition. We want to nitpick every little thing the FBI did." This is a delay tactic, folks. Delay, delay, delay.
Into trial, that's a question to be answered later. I can see how, I think, this is why I'm really happy to have our experts involved, but I can see a way that there may be a motion practice that happens that relates to this. I'm not there yet.
That's where I'm because I'm.
And this is, he's probably going to break it down. This is why he wants her to do it in steps, because she isn't there yet. And he can't just willy-nilly let her going on a fishing expedition, because she might have some motion down the road to bring up. It doesn't justify the cause.
If you have these experts, okay, go through this. I've been through all this information. And so if you can go, using your experts, and your experts kind of can tell me and state that you need to investigate particular people, okay, that were involved in this, then we can have a hearing about it. But
and the reason why they want hearings is because they got to show cause. That means they have to have an evidentiary type of hearing to show cause. They've got to be able to argue it. She just can't go to the judge and say, "We don't know if we're going to need it, but we want it." It doesn't work like that. Everybody thinks that you can just go to a judge, that just because you request it, you're entitled to it. No, you have to show just cause for it. And you have to show its relevance in a trial respect. If there's no relevance or it's moot, you're not entitled to it. It's a moot point. So I think the judge is being fair here. Judge, right? Me and Judge, we don't see eye to eye on a lot of stuff. But I think he's trying to be fair. I have said that, overly fair, to the point of violating other people's rights to be overly fair to Bryan Kohberger. But that's not a bad thing. Hopefully that'll help prevent maybe some future appeals. He's going to appeal something anyways. Let's limit those appeals as much as possible. The judge is taking good care of this case and trying to properly, preside over the matter. And when in doing so, I disagree with a lot of his orders, right? But I'm not the judge. And I'm not the one that has to answer to higher courts of these decisions when the appellate process starts getting underway. That this judge is going to have to do. And he wants to make sure that if he's going to be judged, right? If judge is going to be judged, he wants it to be with care. He wants to make sure he's dotting his I's and crossing his T's. So I can't really fault him for that. But I don't like his orders regardless. I think the non-dissemination order was overly broad. I think it was completely overboard. But again, that he's the judge. He has this thing called discretion, and he has to utilize that the best he can. If I was in his position, would I be the same way? Probably not. I'm not in his position, nor will I ever be in his position. But no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because I'm a very transparent person. And I think there are certain things that need to be blocked from the public until trial. I do absolutely 100% agree with that. I agree with any ruling that's reasonable. But it comes down to the reasonable remark I just made, and I feel like he's been unreasonable in some of the rulings. Again, just overboard in the tight-lippedness of this, when we, the public, should be entitled to this case. Again, it's taxpayers' money that's running this case. It was taxpayer money that provided the resources to investigate this case.
And we as the public, if we are going to send somebody away for the rest of their life or any type of crime in this country, and they're being accused by the people that we hire and pay for, we have a right to be a part of that and to know what's going on. We're entitled to that as taxpayers, as being bosses. Okay. And so we're just saying we wanted what we are entitled to have. We didn't want more. We didn't want less. We just want what we're entitled under the law to have. And he limited a lot of the stuff that we were under the law entitled to have in this matter, which was very disheartening. But again, now we're here where the defense is wanting some of this stuff public, and they fought so long to have it sealed that now it's making it very difficult to unseal it. And she's finding out that this thing that she thought she was doing to protect her client is becoming a double-edged sword for her. And so she's fighting, scratching, and clawing to get this IGG, because she just feels if she gets this IGG information, she can find some wrongdoing, or at least manifest some wrongdoing on the part of law enforcement to challenge it. Not that it'll be successful, just that it's just another delay tactic that she can have on the books to delay trial strategy, motion strategy, and that's the name of the game. So just be cognizant of that. Not everything that you read is true, even down to that DNA where she says there's no DNA anywhere. We don't know that. That's what she's putting in there. Maybe those results haven't come back yet. Maybe they haven't done additional elevated testing on it. Maybe some of the things are taken. We don't know the answers to those questions. We only know what's being allowed to us to read. And this stuff that we're being allowed to read right now is little bits and pieces of this, and this. And we're missing chunks of information, which is allowing a lot of our creativity to run wild when it comes to this case. If you strip a lot of the stuff back, you can clearly see this case and clearly see how they derived Bryan Kohberger's name and how he became a suspect in this case. But again, it's the defense that the state is required to put all of those building blocks in place, walking you straight to it without a beat. That's what they're required to do. And so she's going to try to show that that they're skipping a step, right? That you're having to step over a missing step, right? Like they forgot something. She's in the procedure area. That's the only defense that they have right now. So hopefully I'm clarifying this for you. If not,
quite ready
I'm
to
sorry.
be convinced that without getting this information from the experts, that we're gonna find some pathway, okay, that's going to be helpful to Mr. Kohberger.
I mean,
I don't know.
Courtroom, so if that's what you want to do, we can. I'm here. We waited a while to come to this hearing. I'm asking for it all with a protective order. If we do it the other way, we can do it. It's just everything takes time.
Yes.
And if that's the preference, that's okay. The court knows and would order us to not reach out to any of the people in this material, and we wouldn't do any of that. If we have a motion to file that references any of the content of the materials, that would be filed under seal. These are sealed items. If there was a hearing, I would guess the court would have a chance to look at the filings before granting me a hearing and hear from the state, and that would be sealed. I'm not asking our investigators have access to run out and start interviewing people. I'm asking they have access to not be shut out of conversations, considering what this means and how.
So what I think she's trying to do, because it seems like she's putting a lot of onus in this section of her argument on contact with witnesses. And we know that the state filed a motion for protective order to protect those many results that they received back from the IGG that helped connect the dots to Bryan Kohberger, or give rise to the Kohberger name. And I believe that is why they don't want them talking to the people, because I think the conversation is going to be more in line with who did you give your DNA sample to? I think they're going to try to challenge the FBI's tactics. But the FBI, in all fairness, is removed and was just a resource, right? No different. They're a resource, just like a sonar, a piece of equipment, right? They're a resource. They're a tool to use. No different than a drone or a rove or something like that. So they do their own thing. The FBI is not going to be told what to do and how to do their job. So they do these things themselves and send the lead over to the investigative body. So the investigative body is actually removed from that aspect of the investigation, yet the defense is trying to make them answer to that. And they can't, because in all fairness, the FBI can or cannot provide them leads and tips. The FBI is not required to hand over that information. But they do, because they're a resource that is used, and they're not doing it to hold the information to themselves, but they're not required. I haven't read anything that requires them to turn over all of their material to the investigative body. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, somebody send me the information, but from everything I've read, they're not required by law or statute.
How our client came to the attention of law enforcement, and to plug things into the timeline of us trying to understand how we got from November 13th to December 29th. That's it. Not to go out and try to talk to people. I can just see that there's a potential motion to be filed, but that wouldn't be contacting anybody at all. That would be a motion for the courts to see.
Reassuring. I mean, that's one of the concerns. I mean, pulling a lot of other people into the case that, are completely innocent and don't even have any connection to the situation. So,
and literally in that respect have no knowledge that they're even on this report. Okay, there's a lot of people that share DNA with one of us. And trust me, if I think just about everybody has probably done some type of DNA testing, whether, back in my day, it was heritage DNA. That was long before 23andMe was even thought of. And so I did mine, and, I don't know if I signed for law enforcement. I mean, I did mine 20 years ago. I was in my 20s when I did my DNA testing. What did I sign? I have no idea. I never even thought about things like that in my 20s. So I think they're trying to challenge how the FBI, which place the FBI went to get this information, and was did that company know that they were law enforcement? I kind of think that that's the avenue that Ann C. Taylor is talking about, her possible potential motion.
So let me go back to Ms. Jennings. Do you have any response to any of this?
Oh, Your Honor, I'll just reiterate that Ms. Taylor keeps discussing their ability to just understand the timeline. Again, you're very familiar with the materials. Understanding the timeline and how we got from November 13th to December 29th is all laid out in that letter. None of the other materials are going to answer their questions regarding the timeline. So ask that they be given access to that, named investigators to that letter.
Thank you. You may remember a few hearings in the past that the state, from the very beginning, said there was no, that played no I don't know how to even, it wasn't, when I asked them in the hearing that, did you use the IDG, any of the information of the IDG to get the warrant, to get Mr. Kohberger's DNA, that was not part of it. So in terms of the time frame, don't know that it's that complicated, because a lot of what happened in the time frame happened before that. Now, that's up to you to dig into that, obviously, but there was a lot of information in the letter too, just their sequence of using the IgG at all. So we're going to have to sort this out, obviously. But going back to what I'd like to do is just get some justification for digging in deeper, if necessary. And I'm not sure it's necessary, but I'm going to keep an open mind about that. So for right now, I would say, let's just get your experts looking at the IgG stuff and exactly what they can read from that. And we'll go from there. Okay. Now, with regard to your clarification, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that your investigators can't contact people that they've already contacted without relying on the IgG information. That work for now?
Yes, Your Honor. Our mitigation expert has done her own family tree based on her work, and she has nothing to do with the IgG material. She's not an expert that would have access to that. She's not named. So she needs to keep doing what she's doing as far as her work goes. And I think the proper clarification is that the IgG materials will not be used to develop any investigative leads.
I think that's fair. And what Ms. Jennings proposed in language in their response to your motion, is that something that you would object to at this?
We need to look at that motion and find out what language they proposed. If it's even available to the public, we don't know. Hopefully it is, but there's so much stuff under seal, and I haven't watched the docket in a little minute.
At this point, I'm sure you probably read that language.
I did read it. It's a little bit less straightforward, but I think it covers it. It allows me to continue to speak to the people I'm speaking to and that I need to speak to that are on my list.
Okay. Anything else about that?
No.
These issues. Okay. Ms. Jennings?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, the next question I had is, I know that Mr. Kohberger filed for permissive appeal to the Supreme Court, and I just wondered what you know about that, because I have heard nothing about that. I know it was filed.
I know the states filed their objection, and that's the last that I recall seeing about it.
Yes. So at this point, we don't know if the Supreme Court is going to take it. Okay, we don't know. You know anything else, Mr. Thompson?
Not other than the state's response was filed by the appellate division of the Attorney General's office. And I think we're just waiting to hear from the Supreme Court.
I will tell you that the internet on my end is running perfectly, which it usually isn't, but I've had my sound card hooked up before I hooked the StreamYard up, so I'm not having even any issues on my end. If anybody is having issues on your end, it might have to do with your internet. You might want to just refresh, go out, come back in, see if that helps. Hopefully you guys get that resolved.
Correct, Your Honor. We're just waiting to hear from the Supreme Court. I can tell you there's no deadline in the rule for them. They didn't include a deadline for themselves. And in my experience, it can take anywhere from a couple weeks to a month or so. So at this point, we're just waiting to hear.
So I don't know the answer to this. If it's filed, does that pause what we need to do here, or do we just pause it only when they pick it up?
My read of the rules, Your Honor, is the latter, that we continue as we are unless and until they decide to take it, and then they would decide at that point what exactly is paused and not paused.
Okay. Thank you.
If you guys enjoy this channel, don't forget to go out on whatever channel you are on, if you're on X or YouTube, and please like or heart this segment. Do me a bone, do that. I greatly appreciate it. We work hard behind the scenes to bring good content to each and every one of you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Anything else about that, Ms. Taylor?
No, thank you, Chair.
Mr. Thompson?
No, sir.
All right, I think we're now to schedule. Starting with, there was a request on change of venue, maybe late April, you were saying.
Yes, Your Honor, either that last week.
This is going to be like really like just beating my head against a hard surface. The change of venue. I think the change of venue is inevitable for several reasons. We have several options here to deal with this issue of unfair trial. One, they can ship people in, so they can go outside of the Moscow community and look at a local, like the neighboring cities or counties that may not have as much attention, and they can shuttle those people over to Latah County. We saw that in Alec Murdaugh's trial. When he had his murder trial, he was charged and tried right there in Colton County. But because of the popularity of the case, they were unable to find an impartial jury. So they actually branched out to other communities and shuttled those jurors in. And that's how they did it. But with this one, Colton County was this huge, beautiful courthouse. Latah County is not. Latah County is small. And like even with their size, they have the attached, jail as well. So it's a small facility. Like it doesn't even take up a half a block. I mean, it's a small facility. And in that houses their criminals as well as their justice system. So I mean, it's ridiculously small. That's all I can say. I don't see it being conducive for a trial this size. This is going to be a huge trial. This has worldwide attention. This is an extremely high profile matter and case. So you're talking about people coming in from all over the world. I don't think Latah County has the ability to run this from Latah County, just the sheer size of it. I think that this is inevitable. Not only the fact that community is so ridiculously small, but there really is no good jury pool. Everybody has been affected by this case in that community. So trying to find a jury pool in that small community is just not going to happen. So I feel like the change of venue is inevitable. We are looking at the map. It appears that Boise, Idaho would be the most likely place that this is going to be changed to. But there may be some other options that we're not looking or assessing properly. But that's what our assessment is going to be.
Of April, I think it starts the 29th and 30th, or the first or second week of May for the actual hearing is when we'd request. And we would ask that we have until maybe the second week of April to get our initial briefing in, and then the state's response and our reply after that.
So what are you thinking would be the hearing? Like, give me a day or a week.
I would say that first full week of May, maybe that's May 5th or May 6th.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. Betty, Ben? Right.
Your Honor, we're asking the court to either deny this motion for change of venue as premature or to set a hearing date closer to the trial date when that trial date gets set.
That's a good argument.
And the reason for that is when courts look to change of venue and whether or not that's appropriate, the courts look to affidavits that have been filed. Importantly, they look to what jurors say, prospective jurors say during the voir dire process. Another thing that courts look to is the amount of media coverage and the proximity of that media coverage and the intensity of that media coverage to the trial. So in this case, I think we don't have sufficient information to even determine whether or not that's appropriate without seeing what prospective jurors actually say. But B, we're far enough out from trial that we can't really gauge that anyway.
I agree with all those.
So we would ask the court to either deny that motion at this time or to set a hearing further down the road and closer to trial.
I agree with all of her assessments on this. That is absolutely correct. I mean, she's absolutely correct that there usually is some attempt. But again, I think that this is, in part delayed because it is premature. I do agree with her on that, but I think it's inevitable. And why not address those things now? I just don't see where they're going to. I feel like it's going to be a lot more wasteful, taxpayer wise, not just to call a spade in this case. And it is in his discretion.
If we do proceed to hearing, the state would just ask for a scheduling order. At this point, the defense has filed a motion. They did not file any affidavits, disclose any experts. They haven't even filed a supporting memorandum. And so we're not even sure what specific cases they're relying upon. So we can't really respond substantively to that motion until it's briefed. So we would ask the court to set a briefing schedule as well. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Well, my interpretation was that they were going to give us a lot of information, affidavits, maybe testimony for the hearing. Is that right, Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, you're right. The motion was to put everybody on notice that we'd like to have this addressed. We do intend to have a presentation for the court. We do intend to have briefing for the state. I anticipated we'd get that scheduled today. But no, I didn't file the motion. I filed it to put everybody on notice that it's coming, and I think we need to address it. I think we need to address it before a trial setting. It doesn't make sense to set a trial, get right up to it, and then have to have everybody who's under subpoena rescheduled and have to have the public and the families of everybody disappointed because we're going to reset it at the last minute.
I agree with that argument as well. But I still think this is a premature. I mean, we're over a year away from what they perceive as trial, unless they're talking about 2024. But I heard they were trying to push this all the way to 2025. So I'm a little hazy on those facts as well.
So I think we should take care of whether or not the court should change venue sooner rather than later, especially given the length that this trial is anticipated to go. We'll need to schedule a courtroom either here or in another county in Idaho. I mean, we'll need some advance notice to get that done. It'll take a long time to try this case.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Thank you, Ms. Beatty.
And Your Honor, the state is asking for a briefing schedule so that we're not in a situation where the state is learning for the first time during a hearing what experts the defendant might be calling and what their arguments are. We would ask that all of that information be disclosed prior to hearing, including the CVs of any experts that will be testifying.
Well, that's certainly what I would expect. But it's quite sticky, right? To think, you're going to wait until ready to seating the jury, which is probably a 2-week process in this case. And then figure out, hey, we can't see the jury, so we have to move the trial. At the same time, how do you really know if there's some prejudice without trying to see the jury? It's really a catch-22.
And all of the logistical concerns that Ms. Taylor is describing are totally correct. The problem is that is what the law requires, and that is what the case law says. The case law does contemplate that. So certainly it's correct to note that there are going to be logistical challenges to that, but that's what the case law requires. But even if the court weren't inclined to wait until we're actually going through the voir dire process, at a minimum, I think it would be appropriate for the court to look to some jury questionnaires and at least go through that process.
Okay. This morning I was looking at State versus Haddon, where that was, you're probably very familiar with that, but that's Court of Appeals case, 2012, I believe. And there was a request to change venue well before the trial. The judge denied that, and then it came up again when they were trying to seat the jury, and then the judge denied that at that point. But kind of a double step to figure out if it was necessary. I've been struggling with this, for months, and so it's hard to know. Now, that doesn't mean that one of the parties can't present evidence, and the standard is kind of squishy, in my opinion, but they can provide that kind of information well before the trial. At the same time, I want to make sure that the state has the opportunity to respond to whatever information Mr. Kohberger is going to present. So now I'm scratching my head about, well, is May, first week of May, does that allow enough time? Does that allow it enough time for you, Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, I think it does. I can present the information to the state. I can have my briefing and I can have affidavits and let them know of any witness that I want to call. I can do that probably by the beginning of the second week of April. And that would give them, if we do this in May, that would give them ample time to read it over and respond to what we intend to present.
Thank you. Ms. Beatty, what are your thoughts?
Your Honor, as far as the duration of time between the briefing and the hearing, the state has no concerns about that. The state would just have concerns about those factors that the courts require us to look to as far as the timing of the hearing compared to the timing of trial. But as far as a briefing schedule prior to the hearing itself, that timeline makes sense to the state.
Thank you, Snow.
Well, let's explore that just for a moment. Because I've been thinking about the setting of trial, well, also for months, but I listened very carefully to Ms. Taylor and Mr. Thompson at our last hearing, and I really, it wasn't clear that I'm not really happy about setting the trial in 2025. It seems so far away. Now, it's not just, doesn't just affect Mr. Kohberger and his defense, but there's a lot of other considerations. So I am trying to be fair and realistic, okay, about when we could really be ready for trial. Now we want to do it once, okay? So let me go first to you, Mr. Thompson, about when. I know that it's been complicated, the discovery. I mean, you have these different agencies, FBI, state police, the state lab. We've got Moscow Police Department, Latah County, Pullman Law Enforcement, Pennsylvania Law Enforcement. And I think you mentioned it's hard to get all this stuff together. And that is one of the things that has delayed setting the trial, not to mention the motions about the grand jury procedures, also the issues about the investigative genetic genealogy issues. And I'm kind of curious, okay, when do you think that you will be completely finished with providing discovery to the defense?
So before we go into the response from the state to answer those questions, it seems to me that the judge is signaling that we're going to have a 2024 hearing or trial. It sounds to me that he thinks 2025 is entirely too far out, and it seems like that's weighing on his conscience. So I do believe he is going to be fair, but hearing those little tidbits to me is signaling we're going to have a 2024 trial, which is good. So let's pray on that because we need a I mean, for just the sake of the families, the victims' families. They're never going to really be able to, in my opinion, really grieve, really just grieve their loss until this is done, until this is over, until Bryan Kohberger is convicted. I feel like that they're never going to be able to grieve like they need to grieve. So in full fairness, in this situation, I think for the family's sake and other people's sake, it needs to be in 2024. I think the judge is signaling that he agrees with that assessment. And so let's just pray on that, because I feel like that is obtainable with the comments the judge has made.
Judge, most current projection that we have would probably be at the end of the summer.
So
the majority of
into the summer, this
provided.
summer. Okay, this summer's coming up. Okay, we're not too far from the summer. We're getting close to it. So let's just put this in perspective, guys, because there's been a lot, and we talked about this at the very beginning of this show, that there probably still is a lot of evidence that hasn't been turned over to the defense. And I talked about the motions that were filed from the defense, predominantly that were challenging and saying that there's no evidence of DNA in his car and all this other stuff. And I said, just because they put it in that motion doesn't make it true, guys. It doesn't make it true. So they're saying right here that they have not turned over all the evidence to the defense yet. That by the time they're done fulfilling the discovery request, it's going to most likely push them into the summer of this year. I can't see it happening in 2024 either. But he's still signaling it, Snow. Right? You never know. What do you guys think? I mean, wouldn't it be crazy if they did have like a November trial? How ironic would that be? And I would think that would be very meaningful, quite frankly. I don't see it either. But they're saying April or May. We're getting close. We're getting close. I still think that it's doable for 2024. But I agree with you. It's a stretch. It's a stretch. Snow. It is a stretch. But the judge, he just said it. Pushing this into 2025. Seems like it's dragging it out. I mean, he said it. So I have a funny feeling he's signaling for 2024. He's pushing this case. He's moving this case forward. And hopefully, might be the end of the year. But there is that possibility. So let's pray for that possibility. God moves mountains. I truly believe. If you're not a godly person and you're a spiritual person, pray to the spiritual world. I don't care where the good karma and the good juju comes from. We just need it, right? That's all I care about is the good juju. So put some good juju out there so we can get some good juju back.
That's not to say that Mr. Kohberger has been able to, and his defense team been able to digest it all, because it is substantial as an understatement. We are still awaiting information that the defense both wants and needs to have, and we're going back through all of the discovery to make sure that nothing's been overlooked. We have 2 members of our team, an attorney and a legal assistant, who are essentially assigned full time to that task. And that's projected. We got from them. It could be up to 6 months, which would put us with initial discovery completion at the end of August, 1st of September of this year.
Because last time.
So they're looking at getting all the discovery. So yeah, I would say if they're going to go into September, Snow, you might be accurate. I mean, I don't see them being able to get the discovery, digest the last bit of discovery, and have trial in 2024. But it might be in early 2025. But I still think he's signaling he wants it sooner than later, and that's a good thing. I like hearing that. I like hearing that from the judge. So let's just keep our fingers crossed. Who knows?
we were talking about August for the trial.
Sure enough, and that's what we had hoped for. And when we filed our motion for trial setting scheduler back in December, a couple months ago, we felt that was realistic. And as we are looking at where we are right now, I'm not sure that it is. We know that the defense has already indicated that just on the death penalty alone, they will be filing multiple motions, many of them very lengthy. We've seen the same filings in the Nez Perce County homicide case.
Yeah, delay. Let's hope for no more hearings, and maybe we'll keep through 2024. Yeah, but you know what? As we were saying that, we're listening to Bill Thompson talk about the lofty motions that the defense is most likely going to be filing, especially in light that they're seeking the DP.
Recently resolved. Those I could see taking a couple months in and of themselves to address. In addition to motions that actually directly relate to the merits of this trial, discovery, motions of limine, and that sort of thing. Our team met again this morning with our companions from the AG's office here in Moscow, and we actually have a proposal to make to the court for a trial date and a scheduling order, if Your Honor is interested.
I'm very interested. I'll tell you before you say anything about that.
Yes,
I was looking at whether or not it was realistic and fair. Okay, trying to be compromising to some degree. I think it was.
Yes, he was
March 3rd, 2025.
Well, Your Honor, it just happens to be in pink highlight on my ad here, March 3rd, 2025.
Okay, I had no idea.
So it looks like we are going to be pushing it to 2025, the beginning of the year, around March, folks, around March, even though it's not ordered. We're hearing the agreement from the prosecution. We're hearing the agreement from the judge. So even if we're at this point, we're going to listen. Even if the defense doesn't want this to go on, it's going to be in and around that time frame. So you can go before or after a month. So you're looking at, no later than an April, most likely an April time frame. Oh, hey, honey, it's nice to see you, love bug.
Wasn't reading your mind or anything, but I thought that's about the mid. And I remember, Ms. Taylor, that you said that would be the soonest you could be ready.
And that was if everything went right from that point.
And I remember that.
And it hasn't. It hasn't. But I'll hear what their proposals are.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, so here's going to be the proposal. Now, it may vary. We all know that. So it may vary back and forth the time frame, but let's just listen to Bill Thompson's proposal. If he's proposing it, it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark.
So we would propose that the court set March 3rd of 2025 as the start of trial. We would propose a September 6th, 2024 preliminary discovery deadline that would include exhibits known at that time. November 8th, 2024 for the defendant's discovery deadline. That would give them a chance to respond to any last minute discovery that comes out from the state. February 7th of 2025 for the state to disclose any basically reply or rebuttal to what we've learned from the defense discovery. That would include rebuttal experts. The defense's deadline would also necessarily have to include their mitigation evidence. We would suggest the court consider a final pretrial conference, kind of the pretrial wrap-up details conference for the week of February 12th to 16th, 2025. Since the death penalty related motions are already known and they aren't dependent on discovery, we would ask that any death penalty related motions defense have be filed by September 6th of this year. Did the state have until October?
So it looks like after the summer, it's going to start getting saucy with motion practice. And this is where we're going to start realizing the the strengths and weaknesses of both the defense and the prosecution. Now that again is if they're if the public's allowed to have knowledge of them. There's again a lot of non-dissemination and sealed documents in this record. Those have to be unsealed at some point prior to trial. Okay. They'll definitely be unsealed during trial, and they'll be open to the public after the conclusion of the trial in their entirety. That's the way the law works. So there may be some things that they can still seal, like financials and stuff like that, some confidential type stuff. They can still maintain sealing of those records even after trial, from my understanding. I don't know about Idaho law, but it's pretty much standard. You have few standard laws that are just standard from state to state. And I think certain documents are not available for release to the public. And those will be maintained sealed.
October 11th to respond. The defense can then reply by October 25th and schedule a hearing during the week of November 4th through the 8th of this year. So we can get that wad of 12, 18, however many of those motions are going to be filed, we can get that handled. We would suggest that the court direct the jury questionnaires, if we can't agree on one, that the record suggestions from the state and the defense be to the court by November 1st of this year. That would give the court the opportunity to finalize a jury questionnaire that the court is comfortable with, and it can be ready at the start of the next calendar year, which is when the next jury pool would be polled or would be drawn. And the court can, at that point, get questionnaires out to an initial panel and can assess in a timely fashion, are we really going to have venue issues in the early part of next year as we approach March 3rd. We propose the jury instructions, exhibit lists.
So Bill Thompson, he's ready to move forward. It's going to be in his best interest to move this case forward and to get discovery over to the defense as soon as possible for these things. But, they're all playing a game of cat and mouse, and, they're going to make each other fight for everything they get because that's just the name of the game.
Be exchanged by January 31st of 2025. And finally, as to pretrial motions, which would be case-specific motions in limine and those sorts of things, the deadline for filing, that would be November 22nd of this year, with the understanding that parties could file them early. And the state already has been developing a list of various pretrial motions in limine that we think we'd like the court to consider, and we can file those early. But the deadline would be November 22nd, responses by December 13th, replies by December 20th, and then schedule a hearing on any of those pretrial motions sometime during the week of January 6th through the 10th. And I think
you have to write that down.
I have it all written down.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. And we can get it to you in writing. That's not a problem.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Thompson, typically we go into court with those things that we know we're going to have to most likely turn over to the judge. Yeah, so maybe remember, failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
Ms. Taylor, so if things aren't going perfectly, of course they never do.
They never do, Judge. They never do. And I'll say it again. Death is different. This is a capital case. I've heard the court say the court only wants to do it once. I've heard the court ask, what can I do to speed things up? I need discovery. I need all of the discovery. I need the things that we've asked for. I need to not have to fight in motions to compel for things that was done on behalf of the state by the FBI. That
he has ruled on the IGG, lady. For the love of everything that's holy, quit beating a dead horse. They know you want the IGG. They know you want all of the IGG. They know you got to show just cause. You're not using it at trial. You told the judge you're not using it at trial.
ends up being used against Bryan or used in the investigation. I need that stuff. I need when I ask for something, I need to get it rather than have to go back and ask and ask and ask again. And I'm not saying anything mean about Bill Thompson. I'm just not. I think he tries his very best, but I think.
Okay, so you're beating him up without beating him up. You're telling it that their office is fighting with you, but nothing against Bill Thompson. So which is it?
He's hampered by the agencies and the information he gets from them. I can give you some examples. We asked for x-rays. We were told they don't exist. They're listed repeatedly in reports. We asked for them again. And I'm not sure if I'm getting them or not. The response is we have thumbnails, but we haven't found the actual x-rays. There's one example. I asked for certain mapping data done by a member of the CAS team. They said, you have it all. I said, no, I don't. I only have November 29th. They said, oh, well, I guess we just didn't get that. Something didn't copy right. And I'm not saying anything mean about Bill or his office. I'm saying this is really difficult to drag the information out and get it to my experts or to understand it. And to hear that we're going to have a discovery deadline by the end of August is great. I need to have every piece of everything. I then have to have time to double check and make sure I really got it. I need to have time to get it to my experts and for them to have an opportunity to understand how that impacts their opinions, if at all. So I'm prepared for this case. And then we need time to get things to the state and for them to respond to what we send to them too. I know that this court wants to set this trial. These kinds of cases don't happen in a year. They don't happen in 2 years. They take a long time. This case is challenged with the way discovery has come at us. I'll give you another example. I open up, I get them and I list them in my computer by date. At one point, I gave the court a printout of that so the court could see how I'm getting it. And when I look in a folder, it has subfolders. And I might get some reports from Moscow Police Department with an FBI report. And an FBI report might reference an email. It might reference a photograph. It might reference a screenshot of a picture or of a phone that they took when they interviewed somebody. That's not with it. So maybe a few months later, I get some photos that has these screenshots in it. And now I have to try to figure out who gave that screenshot, whose phone did that come from, which officer did that interview, and get them matched up and figure out if it's somebody I need to talk to. So not only do we have a huge volume of information, the way I get it is completely disorganized. And it's like if you wanted to play 52 card pickup with 100,000 decks of cards and throw them in the air, and I have to go figure out how to put them together. And by the way, the backs of every one of those cards look the same. That's what I'm doing. We also have science questions in this case. We have DNA, we have cell phone analysis, we have video analysis. The video analysis that the state really likes in this case, I don't have the full scope of that video with audio that should be available. They're working on it. They really are. I don't think they're not working on it. I'm just saying this is a real thing that takes time. And then you have the public nature of this case, and people don't want to talk to us. They're not wanting to talk to us. So we have to try to get witnesses, people that are listed in the state's discovery, to talk to us. We have our duties that are required with mitigation because there's no break. I don't get to go to trial on the innocence phase. And then if something goes wrong and Bryan's not acquitted, I don't get time to go prepare that mitigation. I have to take another breath and start right there.
I kind of disagree in parts, Snow. I think that she's amazing, but I come from Florida and we had this amazing attorney. His name was Mark Lipinski. He's since passed away. And he was one of the most famed defense attorneys here in our county. And he will get up there and slap, scream, and throw a temper tantrum. And that was his tactic. It's trial strategy. And when you're dealing with these death penalty cases and significant time cases, you got to do what you got to do to put a dent in your case. And I learned that a long time ago from some of the best of the best. So yeah, it's unprofessional. Like even with Dick Hartpoolian and Jim Griffin, when they were grilling those officers on the stand and belittling them, like, oh, you
talking to a sergeant, oh, you were just the tape guy. You just ran the tape. No big deal. You didn't really have a job. You had a meager job, right? Talking down to a sergeant, we all got up in arms and like, that's SOB, and it's trial strategy, and it doesn't look good, but you gotta in cases like this, you just have to whittle away. You gotta whittle away. You gotta make people look like crap. I mean, that's your job, to make people look like shit, even if you make yourself look like shit in the process. It's the name of the game, right? That's why nobody likes attorneys.
So I have to have time to do all of that.
That's my opinion.
Our mitigation expert is working as quickly as she can. She is meeting a lot of resistance to collect records and to conduct interviews. We're working through that as best we can. She has travel obligations to try to interview people. These things take time. I want all the discovery by the end of August. I love the discovery deadline by September 6th. That does not allow me enough time to get ready for trial by March 3rd. That deadline cut off for us to get mitigation materials, that's impossible. That's just impossible. We've got a year pretty well scheduled out with what travel still needs to happen and what records still need to be obtained. So to have that to the state, I think they said by September, October, that's just impossible. I would request that this court take up our venue motion in May, make a decision on venue, and let's see where we can get with the discovery. I still need to read every bit of discovery that's come, and I haven't. I scan it when I get it, but to go page by page and read it and understand what it means, I'm not through 2023. I have a long ways to go. So I don't think that is realistic to set it. I think if you set it for March, I'm going to be back here after the discovery deadline, and I'm going to be telling you there's no way that we're going to be ready for trial. I would rather this court set the change of venue, make that.
No matter what date it is, she's never going to be ready. She's going to keep trying to kick the can down the road. You know why? Because we're talking about delay. This is what happens when you have somebody that has major problems in their case. Bryan Kohberger has major problems in his case.
Determination. Let's see where we get with the discovery by May. Probably the court would have a decision by the end of May, early June. Let's see where we are with discovery by then and set a realistic day. I hope we can go by summer of 2025.
Well, thank you, Ms. Taylor. I can help in any way to speed things with, if there's problems with discovery.
Come to him. He'll take care of it, Ian. That's what he's trying to say. Speed it up. Quit delaying. Let me put it in blunt terms for you.
I'm happy to do that on very short notice. Just so that.
Did you hear that? On very short notice, Anne. So there's no excuses for you not to be arguing these. Literally, when the deadline ends, you should be filing your motion and getting it before the judge. That's what I would say.
Keep going. But you say, it'd be fantastic if you got all the discovery by August. Your mitigation person has been working already, right? And just to know that I'm not being insensitive about this, I did read the ABA supplementary guidelines for mitigation function of defense teams in death penalty cases, and it's huge. Okay, I get it. There are so many things that if you don't do, then it comes back as, well, you were ineffective. And those standards are high standards for sure. And it takes a lot of time. So, but I'm also thinking, if you get all the discovery, if you can, assuming that, which may be inaccurate, by the end of August, you're saying that you wouldn't be able to respond to all of that, assuming that it's even earlier than that, that you could not be ready for the beginning of March 2025.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I love that discovery deadline. Let's shoot for that. And I think that would help me make a June 2025 trial. I think once we have that discovery, and I agree, we can file the challenges to the death penalty earlier, but the challenges to some of the things that are going to be contained in discovery, those we need to see it all and see how it interplays. I can do some things early, but I may be coming back and asking the court to reconsider if it doesn't go our way and we found something that we didn't have. I think a discovery cutoff is great, and I think the court has to manage that discovery. If we finally are up to the eve of trial and there ends up being a whole new dump of discovery, then the court has to look at that discovery and understand, is it exculpatory? Is it something that we didn't have a chance to prepare for? It should be excluded. If it relates to anything to do with the death penalty court.
So the way I'm looking at this is negotiation. Okay, negotiation 101. They want a March trial, we want a June trial. So there we have it. We have the best case and the worst case scenario right there. Between March and June is when this trial is going to happen. I have a funny feeling this judge is going to be right in the middle. So it's going to be a late April, early May trial. And I think that's going to be where we're going to lie related to this. But I don't see him pushing it to June 2025 because he's already indicated that he feels June 2025 is too long. However, he's also realizing that there are appellate issues if they rush this too far along. So hearing what they're talking about, the compromise, I'm seeing the compromise kind of developing in my mind right now as to what this judge may do. And I think it's going to follow, obviously, with the best case and the worst case are right there, March and June. So it's going to fall somewhere in the middle of that, in my opinion. Unless, for whatever reason, Ancy Taylor is able to find something and get a lot of attention on it, in the last bit of discovery. We don't know what's going to be contained in it. So we don't know what challenges she's going to have for it. So that's the only other thing, the only other piece that we need to put in this equation as to when this trial is going to start. And honestly, we won't know that until it sounds like August, September timeframe. We'll have a better understanding of where they are. So just my opinion.
Portion of the case, then the court's going to be asked to strike the death penalty. I mean, the discovery deadline is critical in this case. So I love that. What that means, if I have all the discovery by the end of August this year, it means that there is a stopping point where I can know I have it all. So I can confidently get the motions filed. I can confidently tell my experts, this is it. This is the scope of what you have to do. And I can have some space to read it all and understand it and get ready for witnesses too. If the court makes that deadline, know that mitigation is not going to be done by then.
Hey,
but the court makes that discovery deadline, and then we follow that with our motion practice, and then our deadlines for expert disclosures and whatever's going to come from that, and our mitigation. We should be in good shape by June of 2025 to try the case. If we have that discovery come up, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Taylor. Mr. Thompson?
Trying to figure out where to start first. Yes, discovery is massive. Yes, there have been things that Mr. Kohberger has asked for that we've inquired, and we were initially told, no, you don't have that. And then we have gone back at the prompting of the defense saying, you sure? I mean, it ought to be there. And for example, x-rays for the autopsy. Well, we just got those. The first came in with thumbnails. In today's discovery, Ms. Taylor's going to have the full size, which we were able to obtain when we saw he gave us thumbnails. These are useless. Give us the real thing. And through the coroner's office, we were able to finally achieve that. According to Ms. Jennings, we are better than 95% complete on discovery. So we're getting close. There are some things that are outstanding. There are some issues with what information is actually available to us. We have given Mr. Kohberger everything that we haven't asked for a protective order on or had some sort of dispute about. And we've given it to them frankly.
So they're saying that there are some things that even the state is planning on challenging related to turning over certain discovery that the defense is asking for. So they're going to also be challenging some of the defense requests for information. It doesn't sound like the IGG arguments is going anywhere right now, and those will need to be addressed again prior to trial.
The orders come in, instead of waiting to try to package it together and give it to them in a different format, just because they want it as quickly as possible. And I appreciate that. And we're going to continue doing that. It's going to benefit to have deadlines for everybody to have to work for here. I don't think just setting a deadline for state's discovery does anything other productive other than that initial stage. So if we're going to set discovery deadlines, we need a state's discovery deadline. We need a defense discovery deadline within a reasonable time after that and a reasonable time before trial, because we're going to then have to investigate whatever the defense tells us they might be using. And then, of course, an opportunity after we see what the defense is proposing or is disclosing to rebut that in some fashion and give notice of that. So that package of 3 days are important. Pre-trial motion on the death penalty, I think that's important. We need deadlines, so we just get it done and over with. And both teams can prioritize based on the timelines what needs to be done when. I don't know the first thing about what's going on with defense's mitigation. Apparently it's been going on for a while. It sounds like it's going to be massive. That's something that we just don't have any insight to. We think that our proposals are realistic. We appreciate the fact that something could happen where it turns out that they aren't realistic, that something happens and we have to revisit. And I think we need to be prepared to do that. I think the last thing that I want to touch on real quick is the proposal to set a state's discovery deadline and set hearings on the change of venue is inadequate. As we've indicated, change of venue under the law, that motion is premature. We need to be able to give the court the benefit of what impacts publicity, for example, is having on our actual jury pool. We know there's publicity. Everybody can agree. There's been massive publicity, not just in Latah County, but I see more about it in Boise or hear about it from other parts of the state than what we're seeing locally. And so the massive publicity, that's a red herring, realistically. There's publicity everywhere about this. The issue is whether the publicity and the nature of this case is such that we cannot pick a fair and impartial jury in this county. And of course, we know that just being aware of publicity about a case does not disqualify a jury. There has to be a showing that that publicity or whatever has impacted the juror to the point where that juror cannot sit in this box as a fair and impartial juror and make a decision based only on the evidence presented in this courtroom. That's the issue that Your Honor is going to have to decide on the change of venue question. And you can't do that based on a bunch of affidavits from experts who say, Judge, there's been a lot of publicity. That doesn't cut it. So I think just having a state's discovery deadline and trying to prematurely move forward with motion for change of venue is not the right approach. We think that the proposals that we've made are reasonable, understanding Ms. Hayward has concerns about whether she's going to be able to meet those. And I think there are enough stages in there that if that becomes a reality, there's the opportunity for us to discuss that. Like everybody here, we only want to do this once.
So I think that they are making legitimate arguments. I think it's being notated that, it seems like everybody's dragging their ass. Let's kind of deadline this thing out. so we can get down to brass tacks. Nobody really wants to drag this out any longer than it needs to be outside of the defense. I can tell you that. But also the prosecution, they have a lot of work. They've got to prove their case. They've got to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And their odds are they don't know who their jury members are and what information they're going to need to convince those jury members of Bryan Kohberger's guilt. Because of the death penalty on this matter, there's not going to be any type of Alford plead or, any type of a plea deal that I can foresee at this moment. I think that the families, the majority of the families at least want to, I think they're an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth type of people. I don't know everybody's appetite for the DP or, their personal preferences and whatnot, but I know the ones that are more outspoken don't want plea deals, want this man held accountable, and wants justice to be strong and swift. So knowing that, I do believe sooner than later, but the defense or the prosecution does have the case that they have to put together, and they have 12 jury members that they have to convince of Bryan Kohberger's guilt. And so it's a big task for the prosecution. Everybody's looking at the defense. The defense doesn't have to do a damn thing, to be honest with you. If you want to look at how the world works in law, the defense doesn't have to bring a witness. They have the right to shut the hell up. The entire defense, yes. Because it's not up for them to open their mouth and try to defend themselves until the state proves their case. It is absolutely possible for a state to bring a case, the defense not say a damn thing, and the state lose their case. It's absolutely, there is strategy for that. When a plaintiff or when the state cannot prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, you don't have to say a thing. You don't have to get on the stand. You don't have to call one witness. The state didn't prove the case. So the state really does have a lot of work that they have to do. They're the ones that's handing over a lot of this discovery to the defense. So they have, common knowledge of what's being handed over, what's being held back for, whatever challenges, whether it be attorney-client privilege or some other kind of investigative, exemption, work product, stuff like that. They're not required to turn that stuff over. So they're they have intimate knowledge of all the cards that they hold. And the defense is trying to get those cards brought over to them. But here's the kicker. If the state does not turn evidence over to the defense, it can't be used at trial. So it's a double-edged sword for the defense as well, because if they need to bring something in and they failed to turn that over to the defense, they can't bring it in. So it's, unless it's newly discovered, that whole thing with Alec Murdaugh, the reports weren't in. And then they talked about it at the hearing about not having the GM records for the car, that they couldn't find them, or they were never received by GM. Well, the next morning they come in, this is during trial, and all of a sudden GM decides to provide them the documents that the court ordered them to turn over. And so the court gave the defense time to review and assess the documents with their experts, and that wasn't going to be discussed until enough time. This is while the trial was going on. So those were allowed in, but they were newly discovered and immediately turned over to the defense upon their receipt. So that was the difference. Here, the defense is fighting with the state to turn stuff over, and predominantly with the IGG, which everybody has acknowledged is not going to be used at trial. But Anne wants it because she wants to challenge procedures. That's all she has right now, is to challenge procedures, and that's what she's trying to do. And she's trying to wheedle away And the judge is saying, you know, we'll entertain it. It's just that you're not setting the grounds for it right now. You got to show just cause for it. You're telling me basically you don't need this for the trial, but you're wanting it turned over, and you're not showing me why you need it turned over. You can't just say we want it turned over so my investigators can look at it without having just cause to have it turned over for your investigators to look at it, especially in light of you saying you know it's not going to be used at trial. So what's the purpose of you needing it? And so those are the things she can't answer other than she's entitled to it. But he's saying, how are you entitled to it? And she can't really explain that. So he's like, okay, well, listen, we're going to have to build up to this. So we're going to have to lay the foundation. We're going to have to, you can't skip the steps, and you're not there yet. So he's letting her build and seeing if it is. But right now she's saying it's potential that she has emotion. That's not good enough. If you have enough direct evidence that you're going to have that this will help you file your motion, then you will be entitled to it. So he's saying, let's do this in steps. So then she may get it. She may get it. We'll see how it all works out.
We do not want to invite error that we can avoid. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Thompson. I think you said maybe you're like 98% on.
But probably a little bit more than 95%. It's what Ms. Jennings just told me.
Okay. So if it's 95%, I mean, is it possible that it could be done before the end of August?
It's possible, and we aren't going to wait till the end of August to do anything. We will continue to disclose information as we receive it. I mean, that's not fair to the defense. That's not fair to anybody. Just sit on stuff and dump it. So we are hopeful that it'll be finished by then, but we don't want to have to face a deadline that we think there's a chance could be difficult to meet. And that's why we propose the early September date, which would be essentially 6 months from now.
September 6th, that's what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Taylor, you said that would be fantastic.
That would be fantastic, Your Honor. And Your Honor can give us a January 2025 deadline if the court wants to set a discovery deadline for us too. Expert disclosures, I think maybe would take a little bit longer, maybe February of 2025. The court gives us a deadline for expert disclosures. I want to comment on the motion for venue change. Your Honor, because I filed a motion and the court doesn't have affidavits or the briefing to understand how we're going to approach this, doesn't make it untimely. I'm fully aware that the massive amount of media coverage by itself isn't all of it. But I'm also aware that this case has had more media coverage than most other cases, and it continues. So there is an impact of that. There are other considerations besides just the massive amount of media and an impact on potential jurors. That's what we're going to talk about. I think it's timely. I think it's appropriate to set a change of venue motion. I think it is what makes the most sense for the court to make that determination and set a trial date from there. If the court sets one here and has to change it later, a lot of things have gone into play to get that trial date set here, to get the courtroom reserved, and a lot of people really waiting until the court has heard the information, more than affidavits saying there's mass amount of media coverage. The court can make that determination. If the court agrees to change venue at that time, then it makes a lot more sense to just set that trial from there. I would think by the end or by May, when we can have a hearing, I would think I would have a better handle maybe on the process the state's going through now with its discovery. I will continue to make the utmost effort to get all the way through every piece of what I have now and continue to follow up with questions to the state so that we can try to have this discovery issue put aside. Once we have the discovery completed, I think that we're going to have a lot better idea of what the motion practice is going to look like and how long that's going to take.
So motion practice, they're thinking January, February-ish. I don't know.
And it'll be a more realistic.
It just seems weird. They've got, after a year, they've got 95% of everything over to her. They're just waiting for the other 5%. And only 5% is still going to take them 6 months to turn over to the defense. I don't get it, but okay.
way to disclose experts to one another with the materials that's required under Idaho Rule of Evidence 702. I think that's a better way to go, even though you might not set a trial date today, because at least you'll set one that's really informed that maybe everybody can rely on.
Thank you. Well, I want to make an informed decision about changing venue, and it makes sense to me. I mean, it may be premature, but I'd like to see what the defense has to say about that, what you're going to present. So, I'm just curious.
I think he's being reasonable because it's inevitable. In my opinion, it's inevitable. I mean, look at that courtroom. That courtroom alone is entirely too small to handle a trial like this. That courthouse is entirely too small to handle the trial like this. In and of itself, of the fact that this community is so stinking small, there is no possibility in my purview that they can find a 12-person impartial jury. I just don't see it. I mean, common sense, and this is in the judge's discretion. Common sense is in the judge's discretion. And it doesn't make sense not to address this because, again, it seems obvious that this is going to have to be moved, no matter how we look at this. Just my opinion.
For years, I can always deny it, but if it's sufficiently strong and persuasive, then maybe it makes sense to do that. But obviously, when
You'll have to look at the law.
in particular, you want to go to another county for weeks or 2 weeks necessary. I mean, we'll do what we need to do, but I'm not, as I sit here, I'm not persuaded that we necessarily have to change it. I think that's an automatic. And there are a lot of factors, and that's one of the reasons why I was looking at this patent case, which is that's court of appeals, but it goes through all of the other cases that have dealt in this issue. So I'm thinking, you said mid-April that you would be able to file all of your declarations, affidavits, whatever you're going to do. Let the state know that who is going to testify. If you're going to have witnesses to testify, there's going to be experts. We got a taste of that, sometime at the beginning of one of our hearings. So maybe I'll hear the same witness. I don't know, but so we'll say April 17th.
Yes, I can make
Okay.
it.
And maybe we say the state has enough time to have their response by May 1st. What do you think?
They are looking
Yeah,
like
we-
June 2025.
Okay. Because there may be experts on the other side too. So, and I expect the information that you're going to present both sides and with a brief. So obviously. And I'm going to be in Boise the next week. You actually have other cases. Be surprised.
I don't know what he's saying, but he's looking at his calendar. It looks like he's talking to his clerk.
How do you feel about afternoon of May 20th? That's a little bit far out, but we've already been talking about maybe having a trial starting in June. So
June
Your Honor,
2025.
can I have it before?
But
May
he has
25th?
not, he's
The
not
witness I
ordered it.
anticipate is not going to be available starting May 25th. Starting May 25th, I think, for 2 weeks. So if I could have it ahead of May 25th, that way we
you have a
can.
jury trial that week, May 20th.
Damn.
This afternoon of May 14, give you enough time, Ms. Beatty?
That was May 14th, Your Honor.
May 14, that's Tuesday.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll say, how about 1:30?
Sounds great, Your Honor.
Okay, 1:30, May 14. I am going to make a determination about that presentation on change of venue before I set the trial. It could still be March 3rd, or maybe beginning of June. Yeah, that's 2024. I know. I'm just still thinking of 2024. But it's hard. It is hard for me to think it is so far out. But I'm listening carefully to both sides, and it's a complicated case, and it's a death penalty case, and that adds a lot of really does. So
I don't know. He seems still reluctant on the June.
I would like.
He just still seems reluctant on the June, and I know he didn't order this yet. He's going to come back with his order, but I'm still trying to gauge his appetite for the trial, and it seems like he is entertaining the June time frame as opposed to the March time frame. So this will be interesting.
Thank you to send me your scheduling list, and I will think about that. We're going to have a deadline of September 6th for discovery from the state. And Ms. Taylor, did you say beginning of January?
Yes.
Okay, January, give me a date.
9th.
9th, okay, good job. All right, and that'll be 2025. Ms. Beatty.
Could we address one more deadline briefly?
Yes, of course. You all give me deadlines. I'll write them down.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's been an ongoing discussion beginning most recently with the state's request for scheduling order, and I believe Ms. Taylor briefly addressed it at the last hearing. There's been an ongoing discussion about the alibi deadline, and the state is asking the court to either limit the defendant to presenting evidence about the disclosure that he made related to the alibi, which was that he was driving around the night of the homicides, but not allowing any further discussion or evidence of an alibi, given the amount of time that has passed since the state requested that alibi disclosure. Alternatively, since it was in the court's scheduling order initially prior to the trial getting vacated, we would ask the court to set a 10-day deadline now, because that is consistent with the alibi statute. The state does not believe it is appropriate to tie the alibi to the jury trial date in this case. The statute that sets forth that 10-day timeline is completely separate from Rule 16 and other discovery deadlines through the litigation process. I think at this point, there has been so much time that has passed, and it has frankly causes the state great alarm that the defense is discussing calling upwards of 400 witnesses during the innocence phase when we don't have, potentially don't have a full alibi disclosure. And when you look at cases regarding appeals from issues that arise during alibis that come up at trial, these cases are all defendants appealing a conviction because the state doesn't get a second chance. If the state gets ambushed at trial, that's it for us. We're asking the court to hold the defendant to a fair alibi deadline, and I think that the time has come. Thank you, Your Honor.
My understanding was that was it. But I may be wrong. Ms. Taylor.
No. When the court vacated the trial setting, the court vacated all of the deadlines, including the alibi deadline. That wasn't carved out as one that was still held through when the court vacated the rest of its scheduling order. So I don't think that we're foreclosed from that. The court also has the ability to give an extension besides the limited time by statute. In this case, it's more than Bryan was just driving around. We have let the state and the court know that we expect that that will be supported by expert testimony and by cross-examination of the state's experts. I need their full cast report and the rest of the discovery related to that before I can say more about that. So to tie me to a deadline when I don't have the rest of the discovery that I've been waiting for that would relate to that will mean that I will be back asking the court to reopen it. My expert can't finish until I get the rest of the discovery as well.
And the discovery you're talking about is a video of the car?
No.
What do you
So the video that we talk about is one that I think the state's going to use in its case that I don't have full video on, that I'm not talking about any video of Bryan's car. When I'm talking about an alibi defense, unless there's video that shows it elsewhere that I haven't gotten to.
So she's unclear. She's saying it's not the video of his car, but it's a video related to him. She's being very unclear about what she's seeking, in my opinion. But I don't know if that's because they don't want this stuff out to the public. That might be why she's being so vague, because she knows this is a publicized hearing. So there might be other reasons why she's being so weird about disclosing what she's actually seeking.
Yet, which may be possible given the fact that there's a lot I haven't seen yet. What I'm talking about though is the cast report, the drive testing information.
Cast report meaning the identification of the particular car.
That is the cell tower information.
I'm with you.
So what that is going to show and what the drive testing data is going to show and what other reports related to that are going to be things that my expert needs to finish our investigation and things that I need to formulate my cross-examination against the state's expert. So when I'm telling you that I'm going to do those things in alibi, I can't tell you more than that right now, but that's how we're going to support Bryan's alibi, that he was out driving that night.
Okay, so you're saying that you have not received the cell tower reports?
I have some data, some cell tower data, some phone record data. I have a draft of a cast report. The most recent information I have cast is the FBI doing their work. The most recent information I have is that on March 31st, they expect for that report to be done through the peer review process. So I may get it a month from now. I need to get it to my expert to digest. There's materials that support their report that I don't have full disclosure of. And the state's aware of it. I think they're working on it. And maybe they're on that drive that I'll pick up today, but I haven't had them yet.
So you expect to get that in mid-March?
I expect to get their report after March 31st after it's done. The supporting data, I'm not sure when it's coming. They tell me it's coming.
Okay, I'm gonna kick it back to the state.
Your Honor, I guess I'm a little confused because if
I obviously am too. So,
okay, I'm confused because if the defendant's alibi is that he was out driving around that night, I'm not sure what additional information his cell data could add to an actual alibi defense. It seems like what the defense is asking for, and they're being completely upfront about it, and I appreciate that. But what they're asking to do is essentially double check all the discovery before disclosing their alibi, and that's not what the purpose of an alibi deadline is. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There is case law that describes that given the ease with which an individual could fabricate an alibi, and certainly that's not what the state is accusing the defendant of doing. I'm using language that is in case law though. Given the ease with which an individual can fabricate an alibi, That is a very legitimate deadline. It's a reasonable deadline. It's a reasonable demand of the litigation process. There is a reason why there is a 10-day deadline in the statute, and that is because the defendant is able to tell his counsel where he was that night. They can work together and formulate a defense, and they can disclose an alibi. That is the whole purpose of an alibi deadline. The state has complied with the discovery up to this point. We will continue to comply with discovery. We are disclosing everything that we have to the defense when we get it, unless there's some protective order issue. We are asking that the court hold the defense to a fair standard that has been set forth in this statute, and that is constitutional under the United States Constitution and the Idaho's Constitution, that has been repeatedly upheld by the United States Supreme Court and the Idaho Supreme Court.
I maybe dropped the ball, that went through the cracks, that I didn't. I guess what I interpreted that as that was it for what we were going to hear about where he was and how he was established, the evidence that he was in a particular place. So once again, trying to be compromising, I'm going to give you until April 17th. You can submit the other information that you need to find for and that should be plenty of time, because you're going to get some additional information from FBI apparently by the end of March, and we can talk more about that later at the hearing on the motion for change of order. So that gives you some cushion. I'm not going to set it for 10 more days, but I am setting that. And the reason for that is so you don't have an ambush at the trial. I mean, that's why that is established with the law. Okay. Well, I think we've gotten somewhere. And is there anything else we need to address today, Mr. Thompson?
I don't believe so, Judge. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
That last little bit was long, but again, we didn't have any type of jury trial set. A lot of people were up in arms about it this morning. And my thing is, I want the trial done right, but I want it done in 2024. That's not going to happen. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the appetite of this judge, but he is going to push it to earlier 2025. The defense is wanting to prolong it and start the trial in June 2025, and the state March. So we have a 3-month window there, basically, of that's going to be the worst case and the best case scenario of when this trial is going to start, if you ask for my opinion. I feel like it's going to be somewhere in between those two time frames. But for whatever reason, seeing what Nancy Taylor is willing to do, I have a funny feeling she's going to push it. She's going to find a way to push this all the way until June 2025 for trial. And I think she's going to push it until the judge just says, we're going to trial, whether you like it or not, get your ducks in a row. I feel like that's going to be the way that this is going to end up going. We'll see. We'll see if the everybody stays on the timelines. Hopefully everybody does. This is a case where we've covered, up front and close and personal. This is a sad case. The families of the victims breaks my heart. It really does. Every single one of them, those kids were good kids. I mean, they really were. They were amazing kids. They loved life. They worked hard. They what they were going to be was cut short. And I think all 4 of them were going to do great things. And I've seen some terrible people in my life. I've seen some amazing people in my life. And these 4 people were up there with amazing. So it's sad. And I think everybody just wants justice. We want to know whether the state has enough to prove their case against Bryan Kohberger. but based upon how the defense is acting, in my opinion, he's guilty. And every time but see the trial, the jurors are not going to hear this. Remember, they're not watching this. They're not supposed to be watching this. They're not supposed to be having judgment. So the people that are going to hear the final results are not going to be as knowledgeable as each of us are, because some of the stuff that we know to be true won't even be brought into the case. The jury will never even hear it. We'll know it, but they're not going to be able to hear it. So when we get to the jury or the trial phase, we need to pay attention to what is being submitted to the jury, because the last thing I want is, people being all up in arms that he's not convicted, and everybody wondering why he's not convicted. It's because they're not hearing that the jury's not hearing the same thing that each and every one of us are hearing. That's why they're trying to be so tight-lipped with it, because they don't want anything affecting the trial when the trial gets here, because there's a lot of stuff that we learned that, again, may be too prejudicial to include in the trial record, and therefore it will never even be heard by the jury. So we see it all the time. All right, guys, we went over our time. I need to get another latte. And again, I'm leaving. So tomorrow, the live's most likely not going to be going on at 6:30. Don't worry about popping out of bed on Friday. I don't know when I'm going to go live Friday. I will be in North Carolina. I'm camping out. I'm a front row Joe. We're going to be there supporting Donald J. Trump and his messaging. So if you are in the Greensboro, North Carolina area and you just happen to want to see Bullhorn Betty, you want to get a picture with Bullhorn Betty, you want to tell me how horrible of a person I am, I will be at Greensboro, North Carolina with a bunch of my friends. And so come by and say hi, right? Come by and say hi. I hope to see some of my fans out there. I love you. God bless you. And we'll see you soon. So I will be in North Carolina on our next live. God bless you. Don't forget to be fearless. If you see something, say something. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And until next time, please be safe. And more importantly, be kind to the fellow man, especially our women. Okay. Don't be destroying women out there. You build yourselves up. Okay. And you bring people along. That's how we roll here on the Bullhorn Betty Show. Take care. There we go.
As you wake up in the morning, you want to find the latest, greatest information about criminal cases and have an intuitive conversation about the suspects associated with these cases. Head over to the Bullhorn Betty channel on YouTube. Get breaking news right here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Coffee Club. Enjoy your stay and enjoy your day.